Hey guys, this is Carrie from Artstitution, and today I am going to teach you step by step how to make this Cinco de Mayo painting, even though Cinco de Mayo was last week. I'm a little late, but hey, sugar skulls are cool anytime, right? So, all right, so I have a 12 by 12 inch canvas. You can use any size, does not matter. Just adjust the composition accordingly. What else? I am using this flat paintbrush, this medium flat paintbrush, and this small round paintbrush. I feel comfortable using these two. If you don't feel good about using those two, feel free to use other brushes. I'm going to be using these two. So I have my paper plate. I have my egg carton with my colors. I have my primary colors in green and black and white. We will be doing a lot of mixing and a lot of having fun. So you should have your paper plate for your mixing tray, and let's do it. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you like this one, don't forget to like, and feel free to post any comments, any suggestions you have, anything that you like that I do, that you don't like that I do, suggestions on what to paint is always good. All right, cool, so let's get started. So we're gonna actually draw it out first. So we're gonna have, let's do 4 scoops of white on your plate. And let's do 2 scoops of black. And mix, mix, mix. So you're gonna get this nice, like, medium gray. It's what we want. So it's also gonna be the darker color inside the skull. All right. Cool. So I have this color. So I always want you, with no matter what paintings we do, I always want you to kind of like put an imaginary grid on it, just in quarters. So if you put an imaginary line vertically down the center and an imaginary line across, it'll help you with the composition. That being said, your composition does not have to match mine. It won't match mine. My own painting won't match, because it's impossible to do, the exact same painting over exactly. Well, maybe it's not impossible. I don't know why you want to. So that's why art is so valuable, is because there's only one original. Okay, so there's only one of these, and now I'm going to do another one. It's going to look similar, but not exactly the same. All right, so if there's a line going down the middle, okay, you see that this part of the skull is basically going to hit the middle. Okay, so we're just going to come down here. Kind of, you don't even need to make a mark, but if this was a line horizontally going across half the page, then you know that that's where we're going to start kind of like bringing that cheekbone over, okay? I want you to take a look at where the bottom of the chin lies away from the canvas, okay? So we're talking about an inch or 2, okay? I want you to always look at the negative space as much as the positive space. So this turquoise color is just as important as what's going on here, here, here. Okay, so you could also use your paintbrush to measure angles, okay, if you're not sure. So I like to do that. And you can, these are all going to be changed up later. So don't even worry about where things are going. It doesn't have to be exact. Okay, we're just going to get something in there. All right, so you're gonna paint all that in. Keep it simple. I hope everybody had a nice Cinco de Mayo. We didn't really do anything. I totally forgot it was Cinco de Mayo, clearly, with my lack of painting. All right. So you want to keep this really thin and really spread it out. Don't worry about the flower yet. We'll add the flower on top. I really need you to keep this really thin though, because we're going to hop from the foreground to the background. Hi, Daisy. Oops. If the camera shakes, sorry, my dog is right there. All right, I like to do the edges. You don't have to do the edges if you don't want to. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do, but I like to do the edges. Also, your canvas is not glued down, so for leverage reasons, feel free to move it around. I'll be moving mine around. And just really just check for pools of paint because you don't want those pools. Just kind of go over it again so you know there's no big puddles. We want that to be nice and dry when we come back to it. All right, wash that brush off. So you don't necessarily have to use any of the same colors that I'm using, okay? So I'm going to stick with the same color scheme as I use down there. Orange usually takes a little bit more to cover up as far as layers go because it's kind of transparent. But I want you to take 3 scoops of yellow and 1 scoop of red, excuse me, and you're going to mix, mix, mix. So I work dark to light. So now that we have the darkest part of our skull, we're going to use highlights to bring all that stuff out, okay? So I want you to add a little bit of blue to that orange until you get a muddy kind of orange. And you know what? I don't like to wash my brush unless I have to. So to avoid dirtying each one of my colors, I just dip it in the edge. All right. So obviously this is much orangier than that, but it's okay. So just keep adding blue till it gets nice and muddy looking. So this is the shadow color of the flower. So we're just gonna add a tiny bit of white. It's like adding creamer to coffee. It's just gonna make it a little milky to match the rest of our palette. So what you're gonna do is we're gonna make that big flower here. And it's like a meatball shape. And make it nice and thin. Because we want this to be dry by the time we come back to it. Obviously the shape doesn't match that shape exactly, and that's fine. Okay, so we're actually going to do all of these flowers that color. Even though they're going to be, you know, yellow and stuff, I still want you to do it that color. I've got a tiny little guy there. Let's see, I have a big yellow one here. And a smaller one here. Okay. Again, I can't reiterate it enough to keep that nice and thin. All right, so we're gonna do our first coat of green now. So of course we're gonna start with dark green. So let's do 3 scoops of green onto your plate. Let's just add some black to that until it gets nice and dark. Okay. But then we're gonna add a little bit of white to that, like creamer to coffee, just to make it a little creamy. Okay, so now we have this nice dark green. So you could switch brushes if you want. What we're gonna do, or you can use this brush. What we're gonna do is I want you to start by doing a very thin layer of green around these flowers here. If you might need to pick up your canvas a bit. It's okay if the colors get mixed up. I know it gets frustrating when you see the brush strokes, but don't worry about it. You're not going to see them later. The biggest thing that I want you to do is keep it nice and thin. All right, so if you want to switch brushes, I'm probably going to go back to that brush, so I'll keep it there. But because it would help if I use the bristle part. All right, so to keep this nice and sharp, I like to spin it on my plate. So I want you to just start doing the leaves like this, okay? And then you're just gonna paint them in. And of course, the leaves do not have to look like mine. They don't even have to be in the same place as mine. But I do want them to be thin strokes, thin layer. All right, it's gonna look funky, I know. Ooh. I like to draw them out first, like, and then paint them in, but you do not have to do that. Basically, we're just doing a nice underpainting. This is like our foundation, the foundation for our entire painting. Okay. Take your time, because we actually want time for this whole thing to dry, which shouldn't take very long. All right. So have fun with the leaves. You don't have to stick with regular shapes. You can do funky shapes. You could do twirly whirlies. I know a lot of people who might be starting out don't have the confidence yet to kind of go off and take risks or do things on their own yet, but you will. You definitely will. Keep it simple. Spread it out. Because next we're going to do a layer background color. So don't feel like you have to do the same color flowers as I am. If you want this to match a color, a room or color scheme of your house, change it up. Nothing I do, you have to do, ever. I'm just showing you techniques, and you can, walk away with what you want, take with you what you want, and leave the rest. And, if you've been to other paint places or done any online courses, you'll see that teachers, a lot of times they'll teach much differently. So it's important to get a teacher, follow a teacher that you feel comfortable, with their style, their techniques. Don't feel like you have to do the bottom edges either. Nobody ever sees the bottom, but I don't know why. It's like knowing that it's not painted annoys me. Okay. So now we're just going to fill in the rest with the background color. So I'm going to wash that medium brush. And I'm actually going to wash both brushes because I'm going to switch. And you'll see this painting that I'm doing is going to be, it's going to vary from this. I mean, I'm not measuring anything out, I'm eyeballing it. So you'll see that this skull might be a little wider, longer, bigger, I don't know. So, and it works either way. All right, so now I'm going to mix myself a turquoise color. So I'm going to do 3 scoops of blue. I'm going to do 1 scoop of yellow, and then I'm going to do 3 scoops of white. So mix that up. And there's lots of different variations of turquoise. So get a turquoise that you like. I like to put a little bit of black in my turquoise just to tone it down a tad. Make it look a little vintagey, but it's just a drop. Okay, so we're gonna do our first coat in the background. Again, keep it nice and thin. We're going to do another coat after this. But we also need to be able to put our flower on there too. So, and we want this to be dry. So really spread it out. So it's a bummer I can't really talk to anybody, but I mean, I guess I can talk to you, but nobody can really talk back. I hope everybody's doing well, and I commend you for taking the time to paint. It's really important to take the time for yourself, whether it's painting, doing a workout, running, building, something that takes your mind away from what's going on. Very important right now. So, well, we definitely want to get to a place in our painting where you're focused on what you're doing, not what you did yesterday or not what you have to do tomorrow. We want you in a place where you're living in the moment. All right, don't worry if your green gets mixed in, and feel free to use your tiny little brush. So I typically listen to music, but I don't put it on I don't want it to interfere with if you guys have music on. So get relaxed, make yourself comfortable. That's really important with these things. And just breathe. It feels good to breathe. Looks like, well, I mean, you could be watching this at any time, but we are going through the coronavirus pandemic right now. And yeah, it's been crazy. That's why we started these YouTube videos. But I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel now. Things are starting to open back up. But I don't think the world's going to be the same after this. Which is a good thing. I think we needed some things changed. And I think they will be changed for the better. All right, cool. So that's our underpainting. All right. So what we're gonna do is I want you to feel that orange, and we're gonna have to put another coat on that. So we're just gonna take that same dark orange, and I want you to go over that. Keep it thin. So basically, we're going to be building lights on top of the darks, and that's what's going to make it look more three-dimensional, although this isn't a very three-dimensional painting, but the same rules apply as all our other paintings. So we're going to do dark to light. So go slow because we want all that to be dry. If you feel like you need another coat on the skeleton, you could do that. I don't think I do. Alright, so the green still looks a little but let's see. I think this should be good. Again, have the tiny paintbrush by you if you need it. Believe it or not, this is how that looked like this. Same stage, so it's hard to believe. But painting is all about being patient. taking your time and enjoying all the steps it takes to get where you want to go. So that's just as important as the finished product is. All the stuff you're learning, it's secondary that you get a finished painting out of it. You get all these therapeutic effects of painting and relaxing. I get relaxed. I get so relaxed when I'm doing these videos that I sometimes forget that I'm filming and I forget to talk. Embarrassing. Well, we're all just human. So at any point, you know, you don't want to use the same paintbrush I'm using, switch it up. If you're an experienced painter, you probably don't even have to follow me. No, if you've done this a lot and you love doing these tutorials and you have your go-to paintbrushes and you know how they work, you could just use those. This is basically I just suggest things. Alright, so you could probably guess that we're gonna do another coat on the background. And then our underpainting, our wash will be done. So it's really important to have a nice strong foundation with your paintings. That's what we're doing now because we want it to be nice and sturdy for when we do all the details. It's like the foundation of a house. If you don't have a nice foundation to build on, well, your house is going to fall down, isn't it? Right. Whatever color background you have, do it again. Should be dry, yes. As long as you kept it nice and thin. Even if you need a third coat, you can go back later. I usually like to do that at the end. I like to kind of tweak everything. But definitely want to keep it thin for now. Even if I'd rather it be thin and you put another coat later because we want this to be dry enough to put our first layer of our flower. Getting there. So yeah, we might have to touch up just a little bit later on, towards the end. Just probably go over it one more time, real quick. Or not, whatever you guys want to do. Okay, I'm gonna get inside here. To wash your brush. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna build up our grays until we get to white. But before we do that, I want to get that first coat of the flower in. So we're gonna make a funky red color, dark red. So let's do 3 scoops of red. I want you to add some black to that. So you're gonna get like this like blood color. And then you're gonna add a little bit of white just to make it creamy like all the other things we did. I'm gonna make mine a tad darker. So it's like a mauve color. That's what you want. Now, if you can see in the background of all these bright colors, that's what this is. Okay? So we're gonna make this, it's like a big meatball-y color. And it's, if the skull came up this way, it comes a little bit off the skull. I'd say it's probably about, I mean, like it doesn't really matter how big you make it. We're gonna adjust all of it. Okay. So keep this nice and thin. Okay. Even if it looks like it's mixing with the blue, don't worry about it. We try to still keep it thin. Spread it all out. Okay. Now we're going to put our first layer of our green, that dark green. Let me see. You can measure with your brush. Yeah, I think it's fine. All right. First we have a green leaf. And obviously my picture is not going to be exactly the same, nor do I want it to be. Just go around your flower. Same thing over here. And it's okay if the background's a little bit wet still. So you can change the composition of your leaves, you know, depending on where you put your these leaves. So obviously up here, see how wet the background still is and it's turning my leaf really light? Don't worry about that. Just make sure you get the leaf in there and make sure it's thin paint. We'll go over it, we'll go over it one more time. So don't worry. As long as you have it nice and thin, we are good to go. If it's thick, it won't cover another coat in the next 10 minutes. So if it's thin, it will. As long as it dries, it will. And we have this guy coming off the page. And we'll be working on the skull for a bit, so and we'll give it ample time to dry. Plus we could always come down here and work. All right, cool. Let's see. All right, wash your brush. Now we know where everything's going, which is gonna help a lot. All right, so basically all the skull are like really just different shades of gray. So here's our base color of gray. So what we're gonna do first is just take a section of it and we're gonna make a darker gray by adding black. Just a section, keep your pile. I like to just use the same pile. All right, so with this gray, we are going to, I want you to outline this guy here. Like that. Okay. So now we're going to start putting the eye. I know the eye is going to be black, but look at how close it is to the edge. And you can always adjust it. But I just want you to have something in for now. You can always make it bigger or smaller later. It's like an oval shape. I just want you to have some kind of visual guide. So you're going to take that same shape, and I want you to just see these black things around the eye? Just kind of make those. Make them dry brush a little bit. Dry brush just means you don't have a lot of paint on your brush. All right. So obviously I didn't make my cheekbone. I didn't place it where it was supposed to be placed. It should be down here a little bit. So I'm just gonna adjust that. See how easy it is to adjust that. So if yours was placed where it was supposed to, then you don't have to do any of that. But ooh, I want you to come in here until you get, oh, I messed up that color. Sorry. Until you come in a couple inches here, until you get to this dark spot. So this is the mandible, the bottom of the mandible. We're gonna just put this, let's call this the negative space, this black spot. I just want you for now to just put a black spot here, separating the jaw from the top part of the skull to the mandible. So this is the mandible, is the jaw, okay? Sound good? So now that you have that, we're gonna go straight across like this, like this. And before you do anything, let's just get that nose in. All it is it's almost like an upside down heart. And the reason I'm having you do it in this color is because it's a lot less scary than black. Okay, and then you're just gonna paint that in. All right, so because the teeth are, this is where the teeth are gonna go, but I want you to dry brush, meaning you don't have a lot of paint on your brush and it looks kind of chalky. Everywhere you think a tooth is gonna go, I want you to come up. It doesn't really matter if that's where the tooth's gonna go, no. Same thing down here. Anywhere you think a tooth's gonna go, I just want you to put that shadow. Actually, that shouldn't be there, sorry. I jumped the gun on that one. I'm just gonna erase that there. All right, so you have these dark spots coming down. And of course you can adjust them later. I like to do the edge too. Don't feel like you have to. I'd like to. All right, that little, whatever the heck that thing is. Okay, cool. All right, now we're gonna start getting into the lighter colors. So I'm not gonna even wash my brush, I'm just gonna dip it into the white. I don't want you to go directly into the white, like to go bright white. We'll do that later. For now, we're gonna just do a step. So I'm gonna use the same pile, I'm gonna gradually add white. I just want a noticeably whiter gray than what our original color is. And that's why I like to go straight in the pile so you can see it next to each other. So now my brush is all goopy, so I'm gonna wash it off. Sorry, that was my can. Okay. So I want you to think like Van Gogh-esque. We're gonna just start kind of making lines like that around our shapes, around our eyeball, like that. really start to feel that shape. You just start going inside here, overlap some of that dark color. Overlap it here so it's not so bold. I know this is very subtle, but I like doing it this way because it's, like I said, it's like a lot less scary. So it's not like you're covering all the gray, you're just kind of like adding to it. So I like that. For here, I just want to start making the shapes in between, very sloppy. All right. Wash that. Actually, don't wash it yet. No, that's good. Wash it. All right. Let's let that dry for a second, and let's go back into. Of course, my green is pretty tapped out. Let's see if these should be dry enough that you should put another coat, but I ran out of green, so I gotta make more. So, dark green, just adding black to green, and then just adding a touch of white to make it creamy and make it match everything else. Now you're just gonna do a nice coat over these guys. Again, feel free to switch up the brush. I'm being super lazy. Alright. You don't have to be super neat about it either, because we're going to outline it all later. But I do just still try to keep it nice and thin. You know what? Maybe come over here and do one more coat of green so it's nice and dark, matching the other one. I know it's annoying doing all these coats, but I promise it's worth it in the end. The bolder the colors are, the easier it is to cover with the light. So if you have like a transparent color, or like say you did one coat and you can see all the lines, when you go to put the lighter colors on top of it, you won't be able to see them. So when you have a nice bold color, like dark color like this, when we go to put our highlights on, it's gonna be like bam, totally covered. Take your time, switch brushes if you want to. I think my dog thinks I'm talking to her. Every time I talk, she's like licking my foot. My sock. Believe it or not, we had snow last night and it's May. I think I lost some of my plants out there. Bummer. All right, before we move on, we're gonna go back up there, do another coat of this on here. Actually, this is the most time-consuming part, is doing all these coats. But it's so worth it, because then when we go to do our highlights, it's just so fast and easy. And I think while we're doing second coats, we should definitely do the orange, just for good measure. Might as well, since the other ones are so covered nicely. So our goal is to make sure that they're just covered. Almost there. You'd be shocked at how fast this goes once all this stuff is done. And if you don't want to do all the coats, then what's great about the videos is you could just fast forward or pause or do whatever you need to do. I'm going to do one more coat on the background. So if you want to change up the color, now is the time to do it. I think I'm going to make mine just a tad lighter. But I still see some brush strokes, so that's going to annoy me. All right, so we're going to actually introduce black in a little bit. So I really don't like to use black until I really have to, just because black, you know, when you're dealing with other colors and you're still using other colors, black obviously spreads and it can kind of like mix into your colors, and we have such vibrant colors for this, so I don't want that to happen. So we're gonna get all the white of the skeleton done, and then we'll introduce, well, you know what? I'm not sure when we're going to do black yet. We'll see. Let's see how it goes. This is the first time I've ever taught this painting, so it's always weird because you don't know. You know, when you're painting the originals, you're like making it up out of your head, so it's like you don't really know the steps to do it yet. So it's kind of funny the first time you teach, which is every single one of these YouTube videos is our first time with these paintings, so we're learning just as much as you. Oops, got some green in there, that's okay. All right. So if you did the edges, do the edges. I did the edges, so I want them to match up front. All right, so that's done forever. All right. So this is fun. So let's go back to that gray, the first gray color, not the light one that we did, but this one. So what I want you to do is might feel like it's a little bit tricky, but actually no, we're not going there. So sorry. We're going to introduce black to the skeleton only. So we're going to take some black. I'm going to actually mix a tiny bit of white just to take the edge off. So it still looks black, but it's not, doesn't have like that shine to it. So for this guy, for this eyeball hole, I want you to keep a part of it that gray color. don't worry about going around. We're going to go around with a smaller one. But I do want you guys to put black in here, this little hole, because you're going to need that taken care of before we do the teeth, because it gets kind of confusing. So just kind of get the mandible hole. Mandible hole, is that a real term? In the nose hole. Okay, so for in here, you're actually going to paint this black. I know it doesn't make sense right now, but it will. All right, so once you do that, we will switch to the tiny brush. And I want you to pretend like there are teeth here, and just kind of make your little bumps if you can here. And you're going to go in the opposite direction here. They go down. They don't have to be neat or perfect or anything like that, okay? Because we're going to go back over them later. I actually like when it looks all scribbly, wiggly. All right. Now we're going to come around here and use that brush. I'm going to come back up here. Come down here. You need to make the nose any different. Do that too. I ran out of black, so mix some more. Okay, what else here? I think that's pretty much it for now. I think I'm going to, well, we'll wait on that. Let's work on these things first before we start putting like black near them. I'm very paranoid about smudging. All right, so I am actually going to take a new plate because we're going to start doing some vibrant colors. Let's start with the orange. I want 2 scoops of yellow, and just add a little red to it because it's gonna, a little bit of red's gonna make it go orange. Now we're gonna neutralize it with a tiny bit of blue. Okay, so it's going to turn into like, not muddy like we had it. Actually, I had way too much blue. So I'm going to add some orange to that. There we go. So now we have like an orange, a proper orange color. All right, so watch me carefully. Oh, my brush is so gooey. I'm being lazy. I'm going to get it. You can dry it off or wash it. I just had another one that I grabbed. So we're going to make these into petals, okay? So we're going to use the brush. So we're going to go petal, petal. Ooh, that's goopy. Petal, petal. We want to still keep some of that dark behind it because that's going to be the shadows in between. Petal, petal. So when you do petals around, I like to stagger them. So we're going to do petal, 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 petal. And then as we go in, you're just going to kind of, it's a little vortex. All right. So you still see some of the dark, but now we're starting to see some of the light. So, oops, it looks like all the ones I did. Actually, I'm going to have you do all of them with this. Even though the ones are going to be yellow, don't worry about it. Just let's start with this. all they are lines. I'm actually going to switch to my other brush after this one because this looks so teeny tiny. All right. I find it harder with the tiny brush because it doesn't hold a whole lot of paint, and it gets me like frustrated. But so does trying to get little tiny details with the bigger brush, so I guess either way. All right. Can't really see this one too much. It's small. Okay. All right, check this out. This is gonna be fun. I'm going back to that middle brush. And let that dry for couple minutes. We're going to go back to our green, and we are going to be adding some yellow to, you don't have to do the whole pile, just a section of the pile, some yellow and some white. Now we're not going to jump directly to like the lightest green. We're going to do a couple steps. So this won't be your lightest one. This will be like an in-between color. Okay, see the difference? As long as you can see the difference, you're good. So, again, we're not going to cover all of it, so we want to keep the shadow color in there, which is all around the leaves and stuff. So these are, just use these on the outer edge. So you still want to keep some of that. So in between, I just put like little highlights. And you can make up, at this point when there's like all this room here, you can just make up a leaf here. And then here, we don't know what's going on, so I'm just gonna put a highlight down here. Just as long as you keep space in between, you're good. And I'm making a one up here. And another one here. All right, good. So you're going to do the exact same thing up here. So you're going to get the outer edges that are going to be the lightest. I like to keep some dark as the like the vein in the middle. So just kind of do that. Same thing up here. So the transition, I want there to be a transition. So it's not like immediately like dark to light. So you're gonna take the same exact pile and I want you to add some more yellow and some more white. Now we're gonna have the highlightiest. Oh, red just got in there. And I like to add a lot of yellow. Right, and again, my brush is super goopy, so you can like wipe it on a paper towel or whatever. So let's start wherever we did. So now, every time we go lighter, we go less. So now that we have a super light color, we're gonna do less. But you can still do it in between here. And you don't have to do it the same way I'm doing it. You don't have to put your highlights in the same spots, that's what I mean. Now we're going to do the same thing up here, lighter, less. I like this one because the paintbrushes are like, the stroke of the brush is the highlight. So for that flower, we're going to do the same. Where's our other? Okay. So we're going to take red. Let's do 3 scoops. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow, just a little bit. I'm going to add a tiny bit of black to neutralize it. Tiny. Then I'm going to add some white. Now we don't want, again, we don't want to jump to the biggest highlight. Whoa. We want to gradually get there. So we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to pick out these petals. All they are really are just brush strokes. Well, that's it. Okay, but see how I left some darkness in there too? Okay. Let's go back down to here. Now we want them a little bit brighter. So I'm going to use the same exact pile of orange. And I'm just going to mix some more orange into it. So now you're going to get to an orange that you like. It doesn't have to be what I have. It could be a little on the red side, a little on the orange, yellow side, whatever you want to do. But I want it to be a little bit lighter than what we have. So then when you go back over, less. So mine's a little bit too bright. I hopped a little bit too much. Let's see. All right. So we're gonna go back over. And since everybody has, I'm gonna degoop my brush. Since everybody has different colors, different shades of colors and stuff, I want you, it's really up to you to just make sure that that color's lighter. So every time you use another color, it kind of adds more and more layers to it, which is what we want. Now watch this. Next thing we're going to do is you're going to love. Okay, so while that dries, we're actually going to put a darker green in there. Watch this. Just to make it really pop. We're not neglecting the skull, don't worry. I want you to have the darkest of the dark green. And add the tiny, it has to be darker than what you had down on there. So you might have to test it out. No, I need more black in mine. So mix black and green until you have a nice, yeah, there we go. So anywhere you think like there would be a shadow, like an obvious place, like under the flowers, around the flowers, there's definitely going to be a shadow. That stem that comes down the middle is definitely going to have a shadow. Put shadows, some shadows in between some of these. There's going to be random shadows in between. Okay. All right. Fun. Actually, okay. Oh, help if I do the one on the top. Actually, I think I want some. All right, so it would be, a shadow would be under here. Over here. I mean, you can make it up where they go. It doesn't have to be there. It just makes it pop a little bit more. All right. We're almost there. Let's add a tiny bit of white to this orange. Now we need to have the lightest of the orange, okay? Noticeably light. So whatever orange you have, it has to be noticeably light. So you're not going to cover all of it, just going to put some in the middle of your petals. Switch my brush. See, here's where I keep forgetting I'm teaching. I'm like getting in the zone. These details at the end are what's so fun. do the same thing and make your lightest up there. I like to use like my original pile and add just a little bit of yellow and white. But you don't want it too crazy. At the end, we'll put like the pop, everything, all the lights and darks that pop. So. Remember, you don't want to cover all the work you just did. You're just putting a highlight. All right. So we'll save the popping for the end. Let's do some white in here, and we're almost done. Let's see how we're doing on time. 1 hour and 6 minutes. Cool. All right. So again, we're going to keep on continuing with the Van Gogh type of feathery technique. Unless you don't want to, then you don't have to. So I'm kind of keeping some of that dark gray. See, I'm kind of, I still keep some. Have it like nice and choppy, go in different directions if you want. So when you come here, just very faintly put a highlight here. I like to change course just to give it a little texture. And don't worry about the black. You can always, we can go back at the end and adjust stuff. Just go slow. A lot of this is feathering. There will be an adjustment period at the end where we're just going to go around and adjust all the colors and stuff. It's fun. See, I'm like cross hatching. It's kind of fun to switch up the shape. All right, so we're going to go back to the lightest gray that we did earlier before this white, and we're actually going to put the teeth in. So I want to use this square brush. So I basically use the square as a tooth, and I leave the black for the middle. See? Same thing on the bottom. I leave the black for in between the teeth. And, you know, even if you have to go back and put some black back in the middle of the teeth, that's totally fine. And then if you want to go back up here and make this a bit lighter, you can do that. Or keep it whatever. Kind of like it a little bit lighter. I'm going to switch it on my original. All right. So wash that brush off. And go back to white. And we're going to just put dry brush, some white highlights on here. These are the things above the teeth, just a highlight. Then you're going to dry brush, you're going to put a highlight on the tooth. Just keep it simple. And if you want the highlight on the bottom too, you could. Whatever you want. And here's where you can kind of go around and put your highlightiest highlights. To be like on the cheeks. And I like to do one inside here. I like to do one inside here. I like to kind of put some white up here. So, you know, it's really up to you. So just keep going till you're happy with it. And then we're going to introduce some black. Actually, you know what? Let's do the last highlights of these and then we'll do the black. All right, so we're going to go back to the pink and you're going to add some white and some yellow until you get color that's lightest of the light. And you're just going to put it, highlight it in the middle. Till you're happy with it. I mean, you can go one more step too if you really want to. And just go literally this ever so lightly. I know I surpassed my lightness on my original, but that's okay. I'm just showing you what happens when you go a step further, okay? So, you know, that's a preference. Same thing with the leaves. If you want to go a step lighter, I like take my original, the last light color that I did. And then you can kind of dry brush one more highlight in. Very subtly. Before we put our black. Okay. So make sure everything's the way you want it. Wash your brush. Get your yellow. And I want you to add a tiny bit. We're going to get to a gold color, so a tiny bit of red. That's orange. You only need a very, very, very tiny bit of red to make gold. Okay, and then add just a little bit of white. And you're going to go around. If you want to use your smaller brush, use your smaller brush. I'm going to turn a couple of these guys yellow. I'm going to use my tiny brush. Okay, so I'm going to turn these three. Just by putting this gold color on top. You're just adding another dimension. then you're going to go back to your, if you want, go back to your original orange. I'm out. If you want to get that highlight to match all the rest, which are kind of highlighty. I went pretty far with my pink, so let's see. Do one more shade. So I hope you understand the build-up for the highlights that I was doing. So now you're going to take your tiny little brush and you're going to dip it in the black. Make sure it's clean and dry. Dry very specifically. And you're going to, I use my pinky as a kickstand. I don't really outline everything like fully. I kind of skip some spots. I make some spots skinny, some spots fat, like just because I don't want to have to completely make it perfectly highlighted, and that's how I get away with it. I kind of randomly highlight. Outline and highlight, I guess. But this part makes it really pop. If I don't like use my pinky as a kickstand, I will, my hand really shakes. So if your hand shakes, don't think that there's something wrong with you. And to make your brush pointy, you can either spin it in a circular motion, or you can flatten it like we did and use it as a razor blade. So you can spin it and make it a point like that, or you can flatten it and use it that way. All right, so before you get, you might want to kind of just adjust up here before you get going. Whatever you want to adjust, it's up to you. If you want to put like another layer there. If you lost some black in the teeth, which I did, especially in between, put some black in there. I like to make my lines kind of squiggly. I think it looks better with the skulls. But the black at the end really kind of brings everything together. Tightens everything up. Sorry, I'm not talking. I'm trying to hold my breath. make some leaves, outline some leaves down here. We're almost there, guys. And you know, if you don't want to outline at the end, some people don't like the outlined look, so I totally get it. About there. Whoa! I think we're done. I think I'm done. So I hope you're done. Well, you don't have to be done if you don't feel like it. But thank you guys so much for taking the time to paint with me. It's so boring painting by myself. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm totally always open to suggestions. If you loved this one or liked this one and you want to give it a thumbs up, give it a thumbs up so I know that you liked it. And if you have any suggestions of things you want to paint, I totally take suggestions, absolutely. And yeah, happy painting. Bye, guys.